I remember first hearing about this musician, and I was so intrigued by the story and by who this person was. So at first I was like, all right, she's a musician from Ethiopia. Amazing. I don't know many musicians from Ethiopia, so here's a chance to learn about one of them. Cool. Then I heard, well, she's a nun. And I was like, wow, okay. I can't think of many nuns I know that are in music. Like, okay, there's Hildegard of Bingen, who was around in like the 11th century in Germany. But apart from her, I can't think of many other nuns who are in music. And then, at the time, I heard that she was like 90, 91 years old. I was like, what? Who is this person? You're intrigued now too, right? This is the story of Emahoy Tsegué-Maryam Guèbrou. Emahoy was born in Addis Ababa, which is the capital city of Ethiopia, in 1923. She was born into a fairly wealthy family, and they had the means to send her to school in Switzerland when she was 6 years old. I don't know if there is any data on this, but I think we can fairly assume that in the early 1930s, late 1920s, for a young Ethiopian girl to be traveling to Switzerland to study was probably rare. She could have been the first, if not one of the first, alongside her sister. Speaking of her sister, I mean, it sounds like she comes from an incredible family. Her sister actually went on to become the very first woman to be elected to parliament in Ethiopian history. In 1933, she returned back to Ethiopia, but unfortunately, a few years later, things started to change. At this time, there was a lot of unrest and a lot of war, and as a result of this, Italy actually invaded Ethiopia in 1936. Emahoy's family were taken to a prison camp, and unfortunately, many of her family members died, but Emahoy, and obviously her sister too, survived. After this tragic ordeal, she had the opportunity to move to Egypt, where she studied, before she returned back to Ethiopia and worked and performed for the emperor known as Haile Selassie I. Around this time, she actually got accepted to go and study at the Royal College of Music in England, but for many different reasons, she wasn't allowed to go. And it was around that point that she decided to become a nun in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Like I suggested before, being a nun and being a musician are two things that we often don't put together. No, that doesn't count. That's make-believe. It's a movie. It's not real. But it's definitely a movie you should watch. It features a young Lauryn Hill, who, if you don't know Lauryn Hill, you need to know Lauryn Hill. We're getting off focus now. Let's get back on topic. So Emahoy kept on composing and playing, but obviously at this point she's a nun, so she wasn't making money from her music. In stepped her former employer, Haile Selassie, who gave her the money to be able to go to Germany and record her first album in 1967. When you listen to her music, it's such an interesting blend of many different styles. So she studied classical music, so you can hear that influence there, but it's also embedded with many Ethiopian scales, and there's a sense of rhythm which is constantly shifting and slowing down and speeding up. It's almost as though she writes without thinking about the bar lines in that way. You can also hear some blues and maybe some hints of jazz too. In a rare interview, Emahoy once said that some of her music was also inspired by some of the chants that she heard as being a part of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. And so you really get the sense that here's a woman who traveled to different places around the world, who listened to music, and who was able to just create something that was very, and is very, very, very unique. In keeping with her faith, most of, if not all of the money that she has made from her music has gone to orphans and others who need it the most. Unfortunately, she passed away just a few months before her 100th birthday, but I think it's safe to say that she used her long life incredibly well, and she's left us with over 150 pieces of music. But not only that, I think the inspiration and the understanding that you can be a woman from Ethiopia who studies classical music, who can use Ethiopian scales in your music and create, and not only just create, but give to people who need it the most. Thank you, Emahoy, for your music and for your life and for your inspiration. Have a listen to her music and be inspired by, I think in many different ways, the timelessness of it. Peace.